All right, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create this look in DaVinci Resolve. So let's go ahead and get started with this look. So first things first, we are working in DaVinci Wide Gamut. Go over to your color management tools and set your timeline color space to DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate. So I'm going to add 4 nodes here. And this first node here, we're going to drag in a CST. So this shot is from ArtGrid and it's just in Rec 709. I think it was shot in Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro. I have the file in Rec 709. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna input Rec 709 and Gamma 2.4. And because we wanna work our primaries in DaVinci Wide Gamut, we're gonna set the output color space to DaVinci Wide Gamut and the output gamma to DaVinci Intermediate. And now here, I'm gonna set this as my white balance. This will be my exposure and this will be my saturation, and I'm going to rename this CST DaVinci Wide Gamut. And so this is where we're going to work with our primaries, and the reason we're doing this like this is so that we can get the most out of our footage, since we are working in DaVinci Wide Gamut and we're able to take advantage of all the color information that DaVinci Wide Gamut gives us. After this, I'm going to add another CST, and I'm gonna rename this Sin CST. And what I'm gonna do here is, at this point in our node tree, we're working in DaVinci Wide Gamut, so I'm gonna input those same settings here, input gamma, DaVinci Intermediate, and then for output color space, we're gonna set it to Rec 709, and then the output gamma, we're gonna set it to Signon Film Log. After this, we're gonna create another node and rename this Film LUT. And now go over to your LUTs and under Film Looks, drag in the Rec 709 Fujifilm 3513 LUT. And you're gonna notice that now we're getting this sort of almost teal color grade to our image. And it's a Signon LUT, so that's why we had to transform our footage from DaVinci Wide Gamut into Signon. So now every node that we add after this Film LUT will be working in a Rec 709 space. Now that I've applied this Film LUT, I do want to mention something. Normally, you want to start off always before applying LUTs, doing anything else, is adjusting your primaries, right? So if I deactivate all this, we're back at our original shot. The sound advice that you're going to find all over YouTube is to first adjust your primaries, your white balance, your exposure, and your saturation. And yes, you should always do that. The reason why I went ahead and added a Film LUT is because, in my opinion, this shot is already okay. Take a look at this waveform. The brightness is not where I want, but because I already know what I'm gonna do to this shot, I'm okay leaving the brightness here. Okay, so I don't wanna adjust the exposure. I feel like the black point is set at a good place. The white balance is also in a good spot. The greens are green, you know, doesn't seem to be any color cast in the shadows. And if I place my qualifier here on the darkest spot and I look over at the vectorscope, I can see that the qualifier indicator is sitting right in the middle of the vectorscope, which lets me know that these black points are balanced. So I like where my saturation is at. I'll leave that for now. But this Film LUT did brighten up my shot a little bit too much, and I want to show you a cool way to add exposure to your shot while adding some nice glow to it and some contrast. So what I want to do is I'm going to go into my exposure node here, and I'm going to bring my gain down a lot to around, I want to put my brightest points around 768 IRE. So I'm going to go into this node here, and then I'm going to drag in a glow effect. And then I'm going to bring my shine threshold all the way down, set the composite type to soft light. And then after this, I'm going to create a power window, make it nice and big. And in this shot here, our light source is coming from this top end here. So I'm going to bring this power window up here and make it even bigger. I'm going to hit Shift H to see what we're affecting. And I'm just going to adjust the feather to where I like it. And that's good right there. I'm gonna hit Shift H to come out of that. And then I'm gonna rename this Glow. After that, I'm gonna right click here, go to Add Node and add an outside node. And what this is doing is now this is creating a node and it's affecting everything that is not being affected by this node. So everything that is in gray here will be affected in this node here. and I'm gonna rename this outside. And so if I activate and deactivate this node here, you can see that we're already getting some nice contrast and a little bit of brightness, and it's helping to shape the light in our shot. But our shot is still too underexposed. Instead of adjusting our exposure here or, creating another node after our film LUT to adjust the exposure, I knew that I was going to add this glow effect and that I was going to add exposure to the shot with this glow effect. And the way you do that is by going to this gain here and then bringing it up. So now, not only are we getting, I'm going to turn off the power window here. Not only are we getting the exposure back in our shot, but we're doing so in a way that creates this nice soft glow effect to the entire shot. And well, actually in this case, to the area that we've selected with our power window. And if you're a subscriber and if you saw my glow tutorial, this is the same technique that I showed you in that tutorial. This is just another way that you can use that same technique. So now that we've done that, we're gonna go over to our outside node and we're gonna bring down the gamma. And that's just gonna help create a vignette effect. And I'm just adjusting, I'm keeping an eye here on my waveform, making sure it doesn't get too dark. And I'll turn off these reference levels. And if we toggle that on and off, that's perfect. And you can see that we're getting this nice vignette built around the same power window. Beautiful. Another thing that I'm gonna do is go over to the spread and then bring it down a bit. And what that's doing is I'm gonna go over here to my select output and select glow alone. And I'm gonna be able to see, and actually I'll turn off my power window as well. I'm gonna be able to see the glow, just the glow that's being applied to the image. And if I reset the spread, this is controlling essentially the softness of the glow. By default, it's set to 0.5. And you can see that there is a little bit of contrast here. It does define some of the shapes in the shot. But if you lower that spread, you get a little bit more definition of those shapes. I usually find that anywhere from 0.20 to 0.35, anywhere around there, creates a sort of dodge and burn effect where the brighter spots in your shot are being defined a little bit more, right? So if I bring it all the way down, you can see that the glow effect is really, not harsh, but you can really tell that there's a glow effect being applied. It's wrapping around the really contrasty parts of your image really tightly. And if I just open that up a bit, again to around 0.3, I'm getting some nice glow into the edges of our shot. And I'm gonna turn on the power window again. And that's just, shaping the light in our image nicely. Another thing you can do is if for your shot, you feel like it's too much, you can grab this opacity here and just bring it down a bit. Or if you feel like you want more of this effect, you can bring it up. I'm just gonna set it back to where it was because I'm liking how this looks. I wanna go ahead and add some color contrast to this. So I'm gonna grab these glow nodes, drag them down. I'm gonna go back to my film LUT node and I'm gonna create a node after that. And I'm gonna rename it look. So now let's build our look, and we're gonna start off by going back to our saturation node here and increasing the saturation. And the reason I'm doing this is, I'm gonna hit Shift H, is because we're working here in our DaVinci wide gamut color space. And if we were to adjust the saturation in this node here, we would be adjusting the saturation of the colors we're getting after this film LUT is being applied. And that's something that you could do if that's what you wanted, but in this case, I want to increase the saturation of our original colors as much as possible. And because this node here is working in DaVinci wide gamut, it's going to do that much better than if we adjusted it in a node after this film LUT. So I'm going to select my saturation node here and then increase it. I'll go all the way and then bring it back. So I'm going to leave it up here. I'm going to go back to my look node. I'm going to go over to my curves adjustment, and then I'm going to select my green curve here. We want to work with magenta to create some color contrast. We're gonna do that by adding it to the shadows. So what we're gonna do first is make sure that editable splines is turned on. Then we're gonna go down here and select this dot, and then grab this dot and then bring it down. And then just start messing with it till we get it to a point that we like. That's good there. And I just wanna show you, just with that adjustment there, how much contrast and how much dimension we've added to the image. Adding this magenta to the shadows really helped create some depth between the sky, all this foliage here. It even created contrast within the foliage. It created contrast between the rocks and the foliage, between our subjects here, sort of our two travelers here, and the water. And we're gonna take it a step further. Now that we've added magenta into our shadows, we're gonna add green, the opposite color, into our highlight. So again, we're gonna select this upper dot here, grab this control, then bring it up. Now I'm keeping an eye up here, making sure it doesn't get, too green. After you've made this adjustment up here, you are gonna affect this adjustment down here. So we're gonna go back to this and push back towards magenta. And then you can just keep dancing with this, adding more green in the highlights and then adding more magenta in the shadows. And I'm liking where that's at. And now look at all the dimension, and now look at all the color that we have on our image, and everything is harmonious. We have our yellows or greens and our cyans, and we have introduced some magenta into that. You can see that our mass here in the vectorscope gets pushed towards magenta, and just looking at the image, it just really pops and it's looking really good. By the way, this method here is what is known as split toning. It's adding colors into your highlights and into your shadows. Just in case you're a beginner watching this tutorial and you've wondered what that means or what this technique is called, it's called split toning. Now, one last thing that I want to do is add just the tiniest bit of warmth into the highlights. So I'm going to do that by going over to the blue curves, selecting this upper dot here, and then lowering the blue in the highlights just a tiny bit. Perfect. So now that we've got our final image, let's just real quick summarize the flow of this snow tree here. We converted our image to DaVinci Wide Gamut so that we can take advantage of all the color information that DaVinci Wide Gamut gives us. In this case, we didn't adjust our white balance, and we adjusted our exposure and our saturation. Then we transformed our image to Cineon film log so that we could use this film LUT, which we applied, giving us a good base. After that, we added our glow nodes, which helped shape the light in our image and create some contrast. And it also helped create that nice glow haze that you see in a lot of cinematic color grades. And then we adjusted our look, added some color contrast, and there you go. It's that simple. That's it for this tutorial. Subscribe for more tutorials like this and others in the future. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.